In this video, we will discuss the relationship between measurements and the appropriate units used to take those measurements. We will also introduce some simple conversions within the metric system. So really quick, let's talk about some types of measurements. I want you to pause the video and take maybe 30 seconds and time yourself and list the types of measurements that come to mind. So pause your video now, 30 seconds, list some types of measurements that you can think of. Okay, let's see how you did. Hopefully you listed some things like length, weight, or mass, volume, or capacity, time, perhaps, or maybe even rate. These are types of measurements that we can take. Now, if you didn't have those down, or if you had some things other than that, then you may want to continue watching so that we can put those into different categories. Some things that people may have listed would be distance. Distance is actually a length. So distance could be here. It's a length from one place to another or from one spot to another. Maybe you said something like you could measure height. Height is also a length. I'm trying to think of any others that you may have said. But typically those are some that students will say in addition to saying length, okay? Now, you may have written down some other things, but let's see. Now, I want you to take another 30 seconds and list some of the units that could be used to take these measurements. For instance, if you were going to measure length, how would you measure it? In what unit? And do the same for weight, volume, time, and for rate, okay? One more time, pause your video, give yourself 30 seconds, jot down as many as you can in each category. Let's take a look at how you did. For length, maybe you thought of things like inches, feet, yards, meters, kilometers, or what I say kilometers, centimeters, a mile. So there's lots of different units that we use for each of these. So look at what we've said for weight, volume, time. I got a little carried away with the time. I was just going in order there. And then with rates, miles per hour, feet per second, even words per minute, like how fast you can type, how much money you make per hour, how much money you make per year. Those are all rates as well. So when we think of units and types of measurements, I never want you to disconnect the two. Whenever types of problems in this course, no matter what topic or types of problems that we encounter, be sure to make sense of what measurements are involved and what units are appropriate for taking those measurements. Another thing that I also want you to consider are dimensions. For instance, when we're measuring length, length is going to be a one-dimensional thing. So think of this as one-dimensional, a flat space or flat distance from one spot to another. But there's another dimension that we can go to. Think of if we're talking about something like area. If you were painting a wall and you wanted to know how much paint would cover that wall, that's what we would consider the two-dimensional space, flat area being covered. And then finally, when we think of volume, we're thinking of a three-dimensional space, maybe like a cube. I'm gonna do my best here to draw it like I used to when I was little. There we go. How much space or capacity that an object is taking up. So that would be volume. This would be the third dimension. So we want to consider that as well. If you're measuring length, let's say we would measure it maybe in centimeters. But if it's area, then we would say centimeters. And for volume, we would say centimeters cubed for the third dimension, because we've got length, width, and height that we would be covering. Okay, so consider all of those things when we're talking about units and types of measurement. Now, one thing, think back to middle school. You may have covered the metric system and how to do conversions there using a certain acronym. Some of the schools in our area say King Henry died by, for your basic unit, by drinking chocolate milk. So whenever you're converting using between the metric system, then understanding the order of those prefixes is very important, okay? For a little challenge, I want you to come up with your own saying to remember this order. Now, I'll give you an example of one that a student came up with many, many years ago. She said, kids have dropped over dead converting masses. And so I thought that was pretty cute. So I will be using that one. Kids have dropped over dead converting masses to remember the order of the prefixes. Now let's see what you remember from middle school with these conversions, and we'll do a couple of examples converting within the metric system. To convert between metric units, you're simply going to move the decimal. For example, we have 2.3 kilometers, or I say kilometers, is equal to how many meters? Well, let's remember our acronym from the page before. Kids have dropped over dead converting masses. Now, the over, this is your basic unit of measure depending on the type. If we're measuring kilometers to meters, what type of measurement could that be? Hopefully you said that is a length or a distance. So we're measuring one-dimensional length from one spot to another. So here in the middle, this is where our meters would be, the basic unit for what we're measuring. Now, if I'm going for kilometers to meters, I simply need to take the decimal as it exists in the number and move it the number of spaces I would have to from the prefix that I'm starting with to where I'm going. So in this case, from kilometers to meters, I'm going to go from the K to the M to my basic unit. That would be 1, 2, 3 spaces. So the decimal on my 2.3 is going to move 1, 2, 3 spaces. And we fill in for the placeholders there. So 2.3 kilometers is equivalent to 2,300 meters. Now, if you think about it, that makes sense. A meter is smaller than a kilometer. So it's going to take a lot more of them to make 2.3 kilometers. Okay? Now, I want you to take that example, pause the video, and I want you to do example 2, 3, and 4 on your own to see how you do. Go ahead and pause your video now and do example 2, 3, and 4. Now let's see how you've done. If we take 0.48 liters, well, let's think about that. Back up here to kids have dropped over dead converting masses. This time we're looking at a liter. So what type of thing are we measuring? Hopefully you said we're measuring volume or capacity. So my basic unit here would be a liter for measuring volume. So 0.48, the decimal is here. To go from liters to kiloliters, I'm going to move to the left 1, 2, 3 places. So my decimal would move 1, 2, 3 places. And again, I need some placeholders for my 0. And I use zeros to hold those places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. That is how many kilometers is equivalent to 0.48 liters. I said kilometers, kiloliters, sorry, to liters. For example 3, we have 7 grams. So for this one, what type of measurement are we taking if it's in grams? Hopefully you said that we are measuring weight or mass. So 7 on a whole number, remember the decimal is behind the number, after the number. And to go from grams to milligrams, we're going to move 1, 2, 3 to the right. So I'll take that decimal and move 1, 2, 3 to the right. Put my placeholder, so that is 7,000 milligrams. All right, last one. Example 4, if you have 193 centimeters and you want to change that to kilometers, we're going to look at our acronym above. Oh, wait, one more time. Based on the unit of meters, centimeters, kilometers, what type of measurement are we taking? This is another one that's length. Forgot to write in volume here. But this is a length. So from centimeters to kilometers. Find your C. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the left. Our decimal on a whole number, again, is at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the left. Use your zeros for placeholders. And we've got 0.00193 kilometers is equivalent to 193 centimeters.